Okay, afternoon everyone. So here we are, a little late, but we're gonna get it in there. We'll see if we can do better next video. I had someone asking about Canadian history, and I decided to see if we could make an article using the Google Gemini. It's like a Chat GPT. And so I had to do it sort of backwards. First, we made the article, and I tweaked it a bit, and then I had to ask them to include the definitions. So here's our definitions, and I'll zoom in a bit. So yeah, I think that's it. So we have tapestry. Tapestry. Imagine a giant woven fabric with intricate design. So, in the olden days, they used to fine detailed weave these amazing rugs or curtains or simply banners. That's tapestry. Indigenous, these are the original inhabitants of a particular area. So in Canada, we call these people that were here before Europeans Indigenous people. I think in Australia, they call them Aboriginal people. Aboriginal people. And in America, I think they call them Native American. So it kind of depends on the area. But if you sort of use any of these three, they're all sort of polite and nobody's going to get offended. And then in Canada specifically, we have three groups. And so First Nations are sort of the people in most of Canada, especially the southern parts that were there. Inuits are the people in the north, so in the frozen areas, and they lived off of like seal hunting, whale hunting, that kind of stuff. They still do. And then Métis, this is a group of people from the early French people that arrived to hunt and trade fur and bring back to France. And they mixed with the First Nations people and formed their own culture. And they're still around today, especially where I live in Winnipeg. And then finally, we have assimilate. So assimilate is when someone assimilates, they're absorbed into another culture. So you will see in Canada, First Nations, Indigenous people were required to assimilate or were forced into assimilation. They couldn't speak their own language. They had to speak English or French and follow European culture. So that's what that means. Okay, so let's get started. So imagine Canada's history as a giant woven tapestry. Instead of a single picture, it's these incredible threads of Indigenous cultures, European settlers, and the constant push for united Canada all woven together, interwoven. For thousands of years, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people thrived across this land. They had amazing trade routes stretching for miles, unique languages, and strong spiritual beliefs. Then, in the 1500s, French explorers like Jacques Cartier showed up, claiming the territory for France. That's New France to you and me. So they called it New France. The fur trade became a huge deal, bringing Europeans and indigenous groups together, but also changing indigenous traditional ways of life. Britain and France got into a massive fight, very casual speaking here. The 7 Years' War, that's what it was called, 7 Years' War, for control of North America. Britain won, and by 1763, most of New France was theirs. This is also when the idea of trying to assimilate indigenous people into European society started, a policy with lasting consequences to say the least. So yeah, there's lots of trauma from these people, and people went missing. Yeah, it's a whole mess from that time. Fast forward to the late 1700s, and American colonists loyal to Britain during their revolution, they were called a loyalist, headed north. This shook things up even more. So a bunch of English-speaking people joined, and now this sort of like put the numbers of English people to French people in even a bigger ratio. To manage these new tensions, the British split Quebec into Upper and Lower Canada. So Lower Canada, I think, was Quebec, and Upper Canada was Ontario today. So English and French speaking. The positions is not really upper, lower. I'm not sure why it's called that way. The 1800s were all about self-government. There were even rebellions in Upper and Lower Canada pushing for change. Though unsuccessful, they showed the desire for reform, so for change. By 1867, the dream of a united Canada came true with the British North American Act. So this is like the first sort of law or act that brought Canada together. It says here, think of it as the official birth certificate of Canada. So New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, the two Atlantic side provinces, along with the province of Canada, which was Upper and Lower Canada, Ontario and Quebec, were the first provinces to join, with others following suit. The 20th century saw Canada grow into the global player. So 20th century is the 1900s. Fighting alongside Britain in the World Wars, so both World War I and World War II. After the wars, Canada boomed economically, and boomed is like a bomb going off, economically and socially. The Quiet Revolution in Quebec during the 1960s stands out, a time when French Canadians really asserted their cultural and political identity. Canada's multicultural character is what makes it so special. Officially recognized by the Multiculturalism Act of 1988, there's still work to be done in addressing the past injustices faced by Indigenous peoples, but Canada's on the path for reconciliation. And reconciliation, this is what we call where we're trying to recognize and reconcile with specifically Indigenous people that we tried to assimilate in the past. And there's a lot of things that we did quite horribly in the past Canada government, that is. So there you have it. A whirlwind tour of Canada's fascinating history, a complex tapestry woven with triumphs, like victories, struggles, and a constant evolution into the diverse and prosperous nation it is today. So let me know how that goes. I tried to tweak it so it seemed a little more casual, a little more interesting rather than just a textbook. So yeah, there you have it. Of course, there's lots more to Canadian history, but this is the general overview into, I would say, the 80s. And in the 80s or something like that, 1986, I think, is when Canada officially became the country that it is today, basically. All right, so take care, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next time.